I'm Willem and this is a 2020 Mercedes AMG GLC63s Coupe, and today I'm going to review it. I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about the background of the car, have a look at the interior and the exterior, and then I'm going to take it for a drive. If you enjoy my videos, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Also give this video a like and also have a look at all my other reviews I've done. There'll be a lot more coming in the future. So the Mercedes GLC 63 was first introduced in 2018 as the AMG Sports version of the standard Mercedes GLC, launched in 2015. The Mercedes GLC is the SUV version of the Mercedes C-Class, like the GLA is to the A-Class, the GLE is to the E-Class, and the GLS is to the S-Class, and I guess you guys get the picture. This specific variant is the Mercedes GLC 63s Coupe variant, which is a top-of-the-line one. It has around 30 more horsepower than the standard Mercedes GLC 63 AMG and around 50 more Newton meters of torque. So the first thing we're looking at the exterior of this car, you'll see this Pan-Americana grille, which I think looks really cool. The previous generation Mercedes or the previous generation GLCs had this sort of diamond grille in the front, which I really didn't like. I don't know, for some reason the diamond grills did not work for me at all. But this Pan-Americana grille looks really cool, and Mercedes are incorporating them in all the new Mercedes cars, the GLC 43 as well, not only the 63s. And these vents are actually open, obviously sucking in the air to the engine bay. And then looking below that, you'll see these two vents at the bottom here. This one is actually closed, the other one is open to suck in some air, but I feel like Mercedes could have opened both of them, seeing that this is the top of the range Mercedes GLC. They could have opened both of them. And below that you'll see this front splitter, obviously emphasizing the fact that this is an AMG sports car. It's sitting quite low, and I think it makes the car look a little bit aggressive, but it's not too much and it's not overkill, so I really quite like the whole look of the front end of this car. So also when looking at the front of this car are these headlamps. I think these headlamps looks really cool. It's got these multi-beam LED strips that goes all around it. I think it's also new for the 2020 version of this car, and I just really like the look of them. So what you'll also note when looking at the exterior of this car is that it's white in color, which I think looks pretty cool with this car. I really prefer my Mercedes or AMGs in black. I think black overall looks really good. You can also get this car with the car with midnight or night package, which makes everything black wheels and everything. I think that looks really cool. And then you'll also see the shape of this car, this being the coupe variant. It sort of slopes down to the back there, as you can see, which compromises a bit on space, but it's supposed to be a more sporty like SUV, whatever that means. So when looking at the side of the car, the first thing you'll notice are these big wheels. These wheels are 20-inch wheels. These tires are 265 45 20 inches. They are really big. These are the front tires, of course, and it's got this very nice Mercedes AMG wheels to it, and it says AMG obviously. Below that you'll see this AMG red brake calipers, which I think is a really cool color for obviously an AMG car. It means that it's fast, or red usually means a car is fast. And then moving to the back, you'll see the tires are actually a lot bigger. It's 295/10 at the back, so they are extremely wide track. 295/40 ZR20 tires, which is extremely massive for the rear tires. Obviously it needs to put all that power on the road, so you need these fat tires. And yeah, brake calipers look the same, and it's just a really good looking wheel and tire overall. So we're looking at the back of the Mercedes GLC 63s Coupe. You'll obviously note that it's a coupe, so the roof goes down here, sloping up to this little spoiler they've stuck on the back here, which looks a little bit like a flat cap. I'm not really sure how I feel about the spoiler because it looks a little bit stuck on here, but obviously Mercedes thought this is the top of the range or the fastest Mercedes GLC that they're doing. They need to put a spoiler on the back of the car, and so they did. And then below that you'll see these sort of chrome strips above these LED lights, which I'm not a really big fan of chrome, but I think for this car it's got a lot of chrome on it, so why not probably. And it's got these red tail lamps, which looks really cool when it's illuminated in red. So when looking below the tail lamps, you'll see this AMG logo, and across from that the GLC 63s logo to show that it's the S variant of the car. And below that you'll see this big diffuser, and I think it actually works. And then you'll see these quad exhaust pipes. Now the thing about these quad exhaust pipes are they look very cool from a distance, but once you get a little bit closer, you'll see that there's actually just one exhaust in the middle, and it's not even a line. So I don't really know why Mercedes is doing that, but for some reason they chose to. So while we're talking about these quad exhaust pipes, let's take a listen how the exhaust note sounds. Let's take a look at the engine bay. So opening it up. It reveals this 4-liter V8 bi-turbo AMG engine, handcrafted of course, like all proper AMG cars should be. I think it looks really, really cool. What AMG has done is they've opened it up a little bit, so it's not only a big plastic cover on the engine bay. You can see the two turbos actually with all the heat sinks and materials around it, obviously to channel that heat that it obviously generates, and I think it looks really, really nice. You can actually have a look at all the different parts and stuff in the engine bay. You'll also see these aluminium strut braces here, obviously keeping everything as rigid as possible, and I just really think it's a really, really cool look when you're opening up this engine bay, not just covered in plastic. So starting with the interior of this car, let's start by looking at the boot space of this car. It being the coupe version, you'd expect there's a little bit less than the standard car. Open it up by pulling that Mercedes logo. And then looking at the interior, yeah, you'll see it is a little bit small. It seems quite shallow to me, and obviously there's not a lot of space with the sloping roof line. You can see it eats up a lot of boot space. When opening up this little boot lid here at the bottom, you'll see these two covers here at the bottom as well. When you lift that up, there's something that looks, with AMG logos, it looks almost a little bit like a NOS kit. But I think that's a reserve air tank for the air suspension. But yeah, if you didn't know better, you'd suspect that this car has NOS. So firstly, when looking at the interior of this car, before stepping into this car, you'll notice these seats. These are these AMG sports seats. I think they look really, really nice and comfortable. And they are really, really nice and comfortable when you sit in them. They also hug you like just enough. I don't think they're too bolstered. I think it's pretty perfect for your needs in an SUV or sports SUV like this. Obviously you don't want to sit in bucket seats in an SUV, so I think this is really, really perfect for this car. And then the other thing that I noticed firstly when sitting in this car is the steering wheel. I'm a massive fan of AMG steering wheels. I think they do my favorite steering wheels at least. I just love the way it looks. The shape of it feels perfect. It's got this D-shaped steering wheel. You get these with Alcantara wrap as well, which I would prefer. I quite like Alcantara. And then this Mercedes logo in the middle, and then everything to control your infotainment screen and your speedometer and everything is here in front of you. So you can set your limiters, cruise control, your volume knob is on the left here, and it also has these two sort of blackberry-like controls that you can swipe and use, which is like touchpads or mini touchpads that you sort of use to swipe through the different screens and stuff. And then looking at these paddles at the back here, I think these are all aluminium paddles. They just feel really, really good to pull, to flick up and down, and I just think they really looks nice for this car, and it works. So then in the center you'll see the center cubby, which you press a button on this nice aluminium part here, and it opens up these two sort of openings, which looks like two doors, and it has this nice space in the middle here, which is quite big. It's got two USB-C ports here, which obviously most people will use in the future, but at the moment most people still use the standard USBs. And then closing that, you'll see also here in the center console, you pop this little cover here, which is a nice AMG logo on it, and it's got two cup holders here again, and it's got a wireless charging port for your phone, a little ashtray area as well. And then looking across from here, you'll see this cubbyhole space, which has the owner's manual, and there's some space for a few things in there. It's not massive, but I think it's big enough. So on the practicality side, I think it's quite practical. So when looking at the technology of this car, you're greeted by these two TFT screens. So if you switch it on, it displays quite a lot of information. It's called the Mercedes MBUX system. That runs in the background with like all new Mercedes nowadays. They all use that same system. So you've got this TFT screen in front of you, which has a speedometer on the left hand side as standard, which goes all the way up to 330 kilometers per hour. And on the right hand side you've got a rev counter, which has these orange dials, which looks really cool, and to show you that it's an AMG car and it's something that you want to drive fast. So there's three different ways of managing this car's infotainment systems. You have these two little touch panel things on the steering wheel that you can swipe left and right, which you can swipe and change all the different settings here in the front as well. So you can go to your rev counter, you can change that to a GPS, you can change that to show your boost gauge as well, you can show your G meter as well. There's so many different settings. Obviously this being an AMG car, it's got a ton more than the standard car. It's got the AMG package as well, so you can swipe around and play with that. You also have this home button, which takes you back to the home screen, where you can change up a lot of different settings as well. And then looking at the middle screen, obviously all the settings are here as well. So you can go to your standard car settings using this touchscreen or this trackpad at the bottom here, which works like a laptop trackpad. You can change your ambient lighting in this car to whatever color you'd like. You can go to the vehicle settings, which shows you your entry and your exit, your safety belt adjustment. You can go to assistance, where you can get some assistance for this car, like your camera and your parking sensors, which you can adjust. You have your owner's manual in here as well. So one of the coolest features in this car is called AMG Performance. So if you click on that, it shows you that you can adjust obviously your own individual settings that you want to configure, how you want the drive, how you want the transmission, and your dynamics, your suspension and everything on here. When you go back there, it also has this vehicle settings, which shows you obviously the airflow in the vehicle when you're driving. You also have this G meter, which shows you how many G's you're generating, which is just crazy, how much gas you're using, brakes you're using. Yeah, it's just really cool features. And also when you click on engine, it shows you exactly how many torques you're using, how many Newton meters of torques, how much kilowatts you're using, and it shows you some oil temperatures and things like that, that if you use a track, you obviously want to see that information. And this also shows you your average consumption, currently at 21.9, which is terrible, but I think a person who buys this car would not care really about that. One of the other features that this car has, let me just switch it off, as it being the new MBUX setting, it's got the Hey Mercedes setting. So if you say Hey Mercedes, Hey Mercedes,
what do you want to do?
Okay, so yeah, you can pretty much do quite a lot with this. Okay, Hey Mercedes,
what can I do for you?
Can you please shut off?
Please select an entry.
Okay, so that didn't really work, but yeah, it works quite well. We've tested it on the road, so I know that it works, but it's quite an interesting setting or interesting feature of this car, and all new Mercedes owners will know that. And yes, there's a lot of technology in this car. To me, it's almost a little bit too much, but obviously
Select a destination by
Okay, sorry. Just going back there. And yeah, you've got navigation, radio, phone settings, everything on here. I like the fact that it's a touch screen and it's got a trackpad and you can adjust it on your steering wheel. It gives you the option whatever you prefer. A lot of people prefer their own settings. And yeah, overall it's a very functional setup here. So when sitting in the back of the Mercedes AMG GLC63s Coupe, the first thing you note obviously is the sloping roofline. So it is a little bit lower than a standard SUV, but it's not too bad for me. I'm around 5'10" and there's still a little bit space here at the top, but I'm sure if you're 6 foot and over, it might be a problem. One other cool feature in the back here are these safety belts. They are red like the ones in the front, but you'd expect only the front ones to be red. So all of them are red to show that it's a proper AMG car, which I quite like. And it's quite a comfortable space to be in at the back. Legroom is fine. You've got these two air vents here at the back here. We can adjust your climate control and adjust your fan speed as well. The interior seems quite nice. You've got this aluminium strip and the speakers as well. So not a lot here in the back. Obviously, this car is more meant to be a driver's car. Got this center console that pops up open here with some storage space as well, and then cup holders as well that pops out over there. So yeah, quite a nice comfortable space to be in. So that concludes my interior and exterior review of the car. Now it's time to take it for a drive. So the Mercedes AMG GLC63s Coupe comes with a few settings that you use to control your driving dynamics, called the AMG Dynamic Select. So it's got 5 different modes. It's got a comfort mode, a sport mode, a sport plus mode, an individual mode, and also a race mode. Currently I'm driving in comfort mode, which is obviously the most comfortable setting for the suspension, the steering. It's also supposed to be economical, which is quite a joke. I don't think this car can be economical at all. But that's just the setting for cruising around and stuff. It is still quite a little bit bumpy in this car. It's not something that's very soft to drive. Obviously, being set up to be a sports car from the get-go, it's not really meant to be a soft SUV. And then obviously when you change it up, I found that my favorite setting is the Sport Plus setting, because it's a little bit sportier, but it also has the Pro AMG dynamics, which it went to now, and the Sport Plus suspension as well. And once you select that setting and you use these manual paddles, this car really comes alive. It turns into an absolute beast. There's burbles on the overrun. It just feels like a real sports car. Wow, this thing is really fun to drive. I have to be completely honest, this is one of the best cars I've driven in quite a while, and it's obviously a brand new Mercedes as well. Going through some area where people are chopping down some trees, which is great for the environment. So another thing about the Sport Plus setting is it makes the car feels very sporty as well, but it's not too stiff. It's obviously a lot stiffer, but being an SUV, overall it's still quite bearable. It is a harsh riding car compared to some other SUVs, but it's not unbearable completely. And the Sport setting with the comfort steering is really a nice setting, because the steering isn't too jittery. It's still okay and soft enough. But when you put your foot down, you can see that you fall right back into your seat, which is quite ridiculous in a big car like this. This car weighs just over 2 tons, which isn't small at all. So yeah, if you think about a 2-ton car that accelerates this fast, it's a little bit crazy, but it is very enjoyable, and it's a feeling that you don't really get very often. This car, going to specs of this car does 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 3.6 seconds, which is extremely fast. The standard Mercedes GLC 63 does it in 3.8, which isn't slow either, but 3.6 is, I mean, that's Ferrari fast. That's the Ferrari 430's 0 to 100 speed, I think, of quite a few years back, but I mean, it's still a Ferrari 430. It's got 503 horsepower and 700 Newton meters of torque, which is more than enough for a car that weighs this much. Sorry, nice piece of road in the front. Let's drop it a gear. Wow, this car is really fun to drive. It's just an absolute beast. Yes, to hold onto your steering wheel when you're driving like that. But these seats are really comfortable as well. They do hug you when you're driving fast and around corners like we are at the moment. And like I said before, it's not bucket seats, it's SUV seats, but it's just a little bit more, it's got a little bit more bolstering, so it's a really comfortable place to be in. So this car also has the 4MATIC Plus all-wheel drive system, which sort of sends torque to all 4 wheels. The normal system is just the 4MATIC system. I think this system works a little bit better than that system. So all 4 wheels, obviously, it gets sent torque and distributes it equally to all 4 wheels, making you really stick to the road. This car has got a slippery mode as well for if you are on wet surfaces, and you can actually feel this car when you're going around corners. Really clings to the road, even when you're putting the throttle or pressing the throttle. It feels very solid and planted on the road. Actually, this 4MATIC Plus system works extremely well. So this car being a coupe sports variant of a car, there's quite a lot of different variations of cars like this nowadays, and the market has become quite congested. You have things like the BMW X3 and the X4M. You have things like the Porsche Cayenne and the Porsche Cayenne Coupe, and you have the Audi RSQ8 and the Audi RSQ8 Sportback. So there's quite a few of these iterations of SUVs nowadays, and it's not something that stands out and is new. I think the BMW X6 was sort of the first coupe-like SUV that offered a sort of performance, and I think they did the X6M as well. So nowadays, for Mercedes doing that as well, it shows that there's a real market for cars like this. So seeing that we have a stretch of open road in front, we are going to launch the car. So switching the car into Sport Plus mode, like I just done. Press the Sport handling mode on, foot on the brake, build up the throttle. Woohoo! Jeez, I've never felt anything like that before. Wow, my heart is pounding. That's crazy. Jeez, that's fun. We can have a lot of fun in this car. So obviously, with the market being quite congested with coupe sports cars like this, for me it's quite difficult to actually assess what this car is like to compare to all of them, because obviously I haven't driven all of them. The closest car that I've driven to something like this would be the Range Rover Sport SVR. Now, comparing this car directly to the Range Rover Sport SVR, the Range Rover Sport SVR has around 50 more horsepower, up to 550, and it's got a little bit less torque than this car, but it weighs 1 ton more. It's actually 3 tons of car, that car. This car is around 2 tons. So out of the two, this car definitely feels a lot more sportier than the Range Rover Sport SVR. However, the Range Rover Sport SVR is for some reason a little bit more exciting to drive for me. When you put the foot down or you floor it, you get this weird like fuzz feeling inside of you, and you just want to laugh because it's such a crazy feeling for a big car like that, a 3-ton car, to move that fast. And I think the sound it makes is also a little bit better than this AMG. This GLC63 AMG feels like a lot more serious car than that. Still a crazy car for cars like this, but I mean, it feels a little bit more crazier than the Range Rover Sport SVR. The main thing, however, is the price. So the Range Rover Sport SVR costs over 3 million rand new. This car, however, is around 2.1 million, not one of them cheap cars. But if you consider a million rand between those two cars, if I had the money, if I had 3 million rand, I would definitely opt for this car and get a sports specific car, like something like a Porsche, 4 million rand extra, or a second-hand Porsche, and you can have an SUV like this and a second-hand Porsche to drive when you feel like going to a racetrack or whatever you want to do. So that would probably be my option. Things that I don't like about this car, there's not really a lot. I'm not really sold on the coupe looks and the little spoiler at the back, but that's just personal preference. It's still a very good looking car. That's not something that's going to put me off from buying this car. And another small thing is where my left foot rests. The area is quite small. I'm not sure if I'm imagining it, but my left foot rests next to the brake pedal, and it feels like that area could have been bigger. It feels like my foot sometimes falls off it. But that's really nitpicking in a car like this. I think everything else is just brilliant. This is an insane engineering exercise for a car like this, and I would not mind putting my money towards a car like this if I had the cash. I would just get it in black with the midnight package. Thank you very much for watching the review, guys, and like this video if you enjoyed it.